Hi there. This clip's looking at whether science really is all that great, looking at the case study of the Indian girl with 8 limbs, known as Lakshmi. She was born with 8 limbs in a rural Indian village, and the question around her was that when she was born, she was seen as a spiritual miracle. She was seen as the reincarnation of their god, Vishnu, because Vishnu's the Indian god with 8 limbs. And that's how she was viewed by her parents, her community, who were highly superstitious and religious because they're linked to the fact that it was a very rural area. However, doctors, or scientists in this context, saw her as a medical problem and advised her parents to have surgery. Hopefully this will work. You need to have a quick look at that QR code in this clip, and it will show you a very brief clip about what the impact of her surgery actually had on her. Please only watch the first 2 minutes. Hopefully at this point you've now watched that clip. I want to talk to you a little bit about what happened after the surgery. So when she was operated on, they removed the additional limbs. However, her community, where she was born into, then rejected her as someone who was disabled, and were actually really angry with her and her family for conducting the surgery. And in the clip, it does mention that the parents were concerned that the villagers had come together and actually cast like black magic on the family because they were so offended by the intervention of the medical community to cut the additional limbs off. So in the context of whether science does good or whether science is good for us, she did have a medical issue, she did have a medical problem, but actually the intervention of medical science led to her being ostracized from her entire community. India is not a country that treats disabled people particularly well. Many of them end up begging on the streets, for example. So it is worth considering, like, how do her parents even view her recovery? Like, do they view it as a scientific intervention that led to her recovery, or do they see it in different terms? And in the video, I'm fairly certain they refer to it as being she survived because she's a god. Her parents only see her in terms of being a god, which means that there are quite a few links with this example with beliefs as well. Okay. And ultimately, we've got to consider, was science actually right to intervene in this girl's life? Because on the one hand, yes, she is now able to walk around and is relatively mobile. But on the other hand, she's lost that status within her community, and it has, to an extent, harmed the social integrity of that community and the cohesion. Her family have had to leave that community, for example. So when we want to consider how we might use this case on whether sociology should strive to be a science, we need to consider whether scientific intervention is always the best path, because in this case, this girl went from being like a spiritual icon to being someone who's something of an outcast now.